Why do you look so nervous, human? Is the bulge between my legs the reason? The marketplace on Arvex Prime was loud, full of alien voices, strange smells, and flashing lights. Captain Elias moved through the crowd, keeping his head low. He was just here to buy engine parts for his cargo ship, nothing else. But then, he felt it. Someone was watching him. He turned, and his eyes met hers. She stood still in the crowd, tall and graceful. Her skin, a shimmering silver blue under the twin suns. Her long white hair framed a face with sharp, perfect features, and her eyes, they were like liquid metal, unblinking. She didn't look away. Instead, she walked straight toward him, moving like a predator that had already chosen its prey. Elias's first thought was that she must be trouble. His second thought came when she spoke. Her voice was low, smooth, but somehow cut through all the noise. Why do you look so nervous, human? Is the bulge between my legs the reason? Elias froze. Heads turned nearby, but she didn't care. Her gaze stayed locked on him. He tried to speak, but found no words. He could see now the bulge she spoke of was not what most people would think. It was a small, smooth swelling under the skin of her upper thigh, glowing faintly blue, and it was pulsing, like a heartbeat. Before he could answer, she stepped even closer. If you value your life, she whispered, follow me, now. Her hand grabbed his wrist. Strong, unshakable, she pulled him into the crowd, moving fast, weaving through merchants and customers like a shadow. Elias didn't want to follow, but the tone in her voice, and the way she glanced over her shoulder, made him realize something. Someone was following them. 3 tall, reptilian aliens, armed, their eyes fixed on her, and now on him. They turned into a narrow side alley, away from the main market. The noise faded, replaced by the hum of machinery and the dripping of water from broken pipes. Elias pulled his hand free. Who the hell are you? He demanded. The woman didn't answer right away. She pulled a small device from her belt, scanning the air for signals, then tossed it aside. They're tracking us, she said. We have about 2 minutes before they catch up. Then maybe I should walk away, Elias said. She gave him a look, calm, but with a sharp edge. You walk away, you die, she said simply. Those hunters back there, they're not after you yet, but they will be the second they think you know anything about me. She touched the glowing bulge on her leg. This is why they want me, she said. It's called a quantum key. Elias frowned. I don't do politics, lady. I'm just a trader. This isn't politics, she replied. This is war. Before he could ask more, a loud crash echoed from the street behind them. The hunters had found their trail. She stepped forward, her voice urgent, but steady. This key can open the black hold, she said. Elias's eyes widened. Everyone in the galaxy knew the name. The black hold was a prison in deep space, where the most dangerous war criminals were kept, creatures so deadly they were locked away forever. If they open it, she continued, there will be no one left to stop them. Elias shook his head. This isn't my fight. She gave a cold smile. It became your fight. The moment you looked at me. Suddenly, blaster fire tore through the wall next to them. Sparks flying. The hunters had arrived, moving fast, weapons ready. The woman didn't hesitate. She grabbed Elias again and pulled him into a service tunnel. The narrow passage shook as more shots rang out. They ran in near darkness, footsteps echoing, until they reached a sealed maintenance hatch. She pressed her hand against the hatch. The glowing bulge in her leg pulsed brighter, and the hatch unlocked with a hiss. Elias stared. The key is inside you. Her voice was almost amused. Yes, bonded to my body, impossible to remove without killing me. That's why they're chasing me. And that's why you can't leave now. They slipped through the hatch, sealing it behind them. But as Elias caught his breath, he saw something through a broken vent. The hunters weren't giving up. And worse, more were coming. 6, maybe 7, armed aliens. all moving with the same purpose: capture the woman, kill anyone with her. Elias realized then that he had no way out. If he stayed with her, he was part of something far bigger than himself. If he ran, he'd be dead before he reached the main street. The woman stepped closer, her silver blue skin catching the dim light. "My name is Kara," she said, "and you, human, are now my only ally." Before he could answer, a sudden high-pitched whine filled the tunnel. Kara's eyes widened. "They're using a phase cutter. It'll slice through this wall in 30 seconds. She grabbed his arm again. "Run now, and maybe we'll live to see tomorrow." They sprinted deeper into the tunnels. The walls shook, dust falling from above. Behind them, the sound of metal tearing apart filled the air. Elias didn't know where they were going, but he knew one thing. Whatever this bulge was, it had just made him the most hunted human in the galaxy. Under the dim glow of the emergency lights, Elias stumbled after Kara, his boots slipping on the wet metal floor. The tunnel was a maze of pipes and shadowed corners, the air thick with the smell of rust and oil. Behind them, the screech of tearing steel echoed. The hunters had cut through the wall and were coming. Fast. Kara didn't look back, her grip on his arm unyielding, her pace never slowing. They burst into a wider chamber filled with old cargo containers stacked like crooked towers. The place felt abandoned, but Elias knew better. Nothing in this part of the city stayed abandoned for long. Kara suddenly pressed him flat against a container wall, one hand over his mouth, through a narrow gap. He saw them, 3 hunters, reptilian, with scaled armor plates and weapons that hissed like venom. Their heads turned in unison, sniffing the air, their yellow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Kara's breathing was steady. Elias, on the other hand, felt every beat of his heart pounding in his chest. She leaned closer, her lips near his ear. "They can smell fear," she whispered, "and they can smell human blood." He swallowed hard, realizing a fresh cut on his arm was probably already giving them away. The hunters moved on, their heavy footsteps fading down a side passage. Kara didn't relax. She pulled him toward a ladder at the far end of the chamber. They climbed quickly, emerging into another tunnel, this one lit by flickering signs in alien script. Elias recognized the smell here too well. It was the docking ring, somewhere ahead. There might be ships, maybe even his own. As they moved, Kara spoke in short bursts. "That device in my leg is not just a key, it is a lock," she said. "If it is activated in the wrong way, it will not open the black hole, it will destroy everything around it." Elias frowned. "Then why the hell are they chasing you?" Her answer came without hesitation, "Because they think they can control it." A shadow moved ahead. Before Elias could warn her, a figure stepped out of the dark, a tall alien in a black cloak. Kara froze. The figure's voice was low, almost disappointed. "You shouldn't have come here, Kara." Elias saw her expression change, the calm mask cracking for just a moment. "I didn't have a choice," she said. The figure tilted its head. "You always have a choice. Unless you've decided to let a human choose for you." The tension was thick. Elias instinctively stepped between them, even though he knew he wouldn't stand a chance if this turned violent. The cloaked alien ignored him, eyes locked on Kara. "I can take you to safety," the figure said, but not him. Elias expected her to hesitate, but she didn't. "He comes with me," she said, voice sharp as a blade. That was the moment the betrayal came. The cloak shifted, revealing a blaster already in the alien's hand. Kara moved first, shoving Elias aside as the shot exploded against the wall. The sound of the blast echoed like thunder through the docking ring. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and then, as if summoned by the noise, more hunters poured into the corridor from every side. Elias didn't think. He grabbed Kara's arm and ran. They darted between docking bays, past piles of cargo, the air filled with the hiss and crack of energy weapons. Kara fired back with a sleek pistol, dropping 2 hunters before they could close in. One of the shots hit the floor near Elias's feet, and he felt the heat scorch his boots. A door ahead slid open, and Elias caught sight of the familiar blue hull of his ship. It was the only piece of home he had left. They sprinted for it, but just as they reached the ramp, Kara staggered. Elias turned to see blood on her side, dark and thick. Her hand trembled, but she forced herself up the ramp. Inside, Elias slammed the hatch shut, locking out the chaos outside. Kara collapsed into the co-pilot seat, her breathing uneven. Her fingers pressed the glowing bulge on her leg, and for a moment, it pulsed with an intense blue light. Elias felt a deep vibration through the floor, like the ship itself could feel the power inside her. She looked at him with fierce, unblinking eyes. "Get us off this station," she said. Now, outside, the hunters were already forcing the hatch controls. Inside, Elias fired up the engines as the ship rose from the docking clamps. The station alarm screamed louder. Kara closed her eyes for a moment, whispering something in a language Elias didn't understand. Then she opened them again, her voice steady, despite the pain. "They won't stop until I'm dead, human." She glanced at the glowing bulge, "And if I die, the galaxy burns with me." Stars streaked into long white lines as Elias's ship broke free from the station's gravity. The hum of the engines filled the cabin, but underneath it, Elias could hear Kara's strained breathing. She was pale, her silver-blue skin dulled by blood loss, yet her eyes still burned with determination. He had questions too many, but the way her hands gripped the armrests told him she was fighting to stay conscious. "Hold on," he muttered, guiding the ship into the safety of open space. But safety was a lie. Through the viewport, 3 sharp dagger-shaped vessels dropped from warp, their hulls marked with the red insignia of the Zareth hunters. They had been waiting. Kara sat forward, despite her injury, fingers flying over the navigation screen. "They've already locked weapons," she said. "You can't outrun them in a straight path." Elias's instinct was to punch the throttle and run anyway. But she slammed her hand over the controls, her glare like ice. "If you fly like a traitor, you die like one." She keyed in a set of coordinates, so quickly Elias barely had time to see them flash across the console. The computer squawked a warning: "Uncharted space, navigation risk high." Elias looked at her. "This is a bad idea." Her answer was quiet, but it carried weight. "It's the only idea." The ship jerked violently as the first hunter vessel fired, a searing beam glancing off the shields. Elias swung the ship in a hard roll, diving between 2 of the enemy craft. Kara's voice was calm, almost unnervingly so. "Keep them chasing. Make them think we're desperate." Elias snorted. "We are desperate." She allowed herself the faintest smile. "Good, then you'll fly like it." He threaded the ship through a narrow asteroid cluster, sharp rocks tumbling in the void. The hunters followed, their beams slicing through stone, sending fragments spinning into the darkness. The shields groaned, warning lights flaring on. The console, Kara reached under her seat, pulling out a long, metallic case. She opened it, revealing what looked like a handheld pulse cannon, but sleeker, more alien than anything Elias had seen. "This is why they can't catch us," she said. "If they get this, they can control the key inside me from anywhere in the galaxy." Another impact rocked the ship. Elias's knuckles whitened on the controls. "What's stopping me from throwing that thing out the airlock right now?" Kara's voice hardened. "If it's not with me, it activates itself. And then no one throws anything out, because there's nothing left to throw." The ship's sensors suddenly lit up with a pulse unlike anything Elias recognized. Kara's eyes narrowed. "They're calling for reinforcements." Elias cursed under his breath. He angled the ship toward a vast, dark cloud ahead, a nebula, shifting like a living creature in the void. The sensors screamed warnings, detecting unstable gravimetric currents inside. "You'll never make it through that alive," Kara said flatly. Elias just grinned. "Good. Then they won't follow us." He plunged the ship into the swirling mist. The universe outside vanished into black and crimson gas. The hunters hesitated to break off, but one followed, its outline a shadow in the fog. The ship shook violently, strange static, crawling over the hull. Kara gripped the seat, her voice low. This place. It's not just a nebula. Elias frowned. What is it then? Her gaze was distant. It's a graveyard, as if to prove her right. The mist thinned for a moment, revealing massive, silent shapes drifting in the void. Derelict warships. Some split in half, others riddled with holes like ancient bones picked clean. Elias maneuvered between them, but the lone hunter's ship stayed close, its weapons charging. Kara tapped the console, eyes fixed on the display. There, she said, pointing to the largest wreck, a battleship torn in two, its open hull forming a jagged tunnel. Elias didn't ask. He drove the ship straight toward it. The hunter followed, firing a pulse that grazed the starboard wing. Elias swore, sparks showering the cockpit at the last second. He angled the ship through the shattered remains of the battleship's core. Metal screamed against the hull, alarms blared, but they made it through. The hunter wasn't so lucky. Its wing clipped a beam, sending it spinning into the wreckage in a flash of fire. For a brief moment, there was silence, only the hum of the engines and Kara's slow breathing. Then she looked at him, her voice quieter now. You fly like someone who's been hunted before. Elias didn't answer. His eyes were already scanning the nebula ahead. Because something was moving out there, not the hunters this time, but something far bigger, with lights like cold stars watching them from the dark. The lights in the nebula shifted, faint points that blinked in patterns far too deliberate to be random. Elias felt it in his gut before the sensors confirmed it. Something massive was moving toward them. The outline emerged slowly from the crimson mist, a ship so huge it dwarfed even the wrecked battleships floating around it. Its surface shimmered, with strange symbols that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Kara's voice dropped to a whisper. That shouldn't be here. The computer flashed, no registry match. Elias had been in deep space long enough to know that meant trouble. The vessel drifted closer without visible engines, its motion silent and smooth, as it loomed above them. Sections of its hull opened like an iris, revealing a faint blue glow within. Elias gripped the controls tighter. That looks like an invitation I'm not taking. Kara's hand shot out, stopping him from turning away. If you run, it will follow, she said, and these are not the kind of beings you want chasing you. A beam of pale light spilled from the opening, washing over their cockpit. The ship's systems flickered. The engine hum dropped to a low growl, every display on the console filled with alien symbols Elias couldn't read. Then a voice, not in his ears, but in his mind, spoke. Identify the bearer of the key. Kara stiffened. They know, she said under her breath. The voice came again, colder this time. The key must not remain in mortal hands. Elias had no idea who or what they were, but the word mortal made his skin crawl. Tell them they can't have it, he said. Kara gave a humorless laugh. They're not asking. Without warning, a surge of light engulfed the cockpit. When Elias blinked, the nebula was gone. They were standing, floating in a vast open chamber, made of black stone. There was no air, yet he could breathe. No gravity, yet he stood, as if on solid ground. Figures emerged from the darkness, tall and slender, their forms shifting between solid and transparent. Eyes like molten gold studied them in silence. One stepped forward, its voice resonating directly inside their minds. The key belongs to the keepers. Kara took a step back. I swore never to give it to you, she said, her voice steady, but her hands clenched. Then you swore to doom your kind, the keeper replied. Its gaze turned to Elias. And you, human, why protect what you cannot control? Elias opened his mouth, but no words came. His mind was being pulled, not painfully, but with a strange weight, into flashes of images. War, fire, alien worlds falling to ruin, and in every vision, the glowing bulge in Kara's leg pulsed, brighter, like the last heartbeat of a dying star. When the visions faded, Elias could only manage one sentence, because if you want it this badly, I'm guessing you shouldn't have it. The keeper's eyes flared, the chamber trembling like a living thing. Kara reached for him, and in that instant, the darkness shattered. They were back in the cockpit, alarms screaming, the massive alien vessel already fading into the mist as if it had never been there. Elias slammed the throttle, pulling them away from the last glimpse of golden eyes in the dark. Kara didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was low, almost weary. They weren't supposed to find us this soon. Elias glanced at her. So who else is after us? She turned her gaze toward the stars. Everyone who knows the key exists, and some who shouldn't even be real. The hum of the engines was the only sound in the cabin, but it felt too loud. Ilias's hands stayed on the controls, scanning for threats, though he knew threats didn't always show up on a radar. Kara sat in silence, her eyes locked on the shifting stars outside, yet her posture was too tense to be calm. He had seen that look before, the look of someone expecting betrayal. It came sooner than he thought. The comm system crackled, a voice slipping through like smoke. Kara. It's been a long time. Her head snapped toward the sound. Zarek, she said, and there was a sharpness in her tone Elias hadn't heard before. The voice laughed, low, smooth, dangerous. You always did run toward trouble, instead of away from it. Elias frowned. Friend of yours. Kara didn't look at him. Once, she said. And that single word carried both history and warning. Without warning, a small, angular ship dropped out of warp ahead of them, blocking their path. Its hull was matte black, swallowing the starlight. Around it, Ilias's targeting system failed to even lock onto it. That wasn't normal tech. That was predator tech. The comms came alive again. You've made the galaxy very interested in you, Kara. Lucky for you, I'm offering a way out. Elias knew the type. Smooth talk first, knife in the back later. What's the catch? He asked. Zarek's answer came without hesitation. The human leaves. You come with me. I hand you to someone who can negotiate a fair deal for your life. Elias scoffed. And let me guess. This deal means she survives long enough for them to rip that thing out of her. Kara's eyes flicked to him, then back to the screen. She didn't deny it. Instead, she said, I told you once, Zarek, I don't make deals with people who sell their own. The ship ahead powered weapons, the space between them charged. With a quiet, deadly hum, Zarek's voice lost its charm. You won't get another chance, Kara. Elias acted before she could reply, cutting the engines just enough to make their ship drift. In the same motion, he spun the vessel, using the drift to slingshot under Zarek's aim. The black ship fired, the beam slicing past their hull, so close Elias swore he smelled scorched metal. Kara moved instantly, firing their rear cannons. The blast wasn't strong enough to destroy Zarek's ship, but it forced him to break formation. Zarek's laughter returned, colder now. Run, Kara, I'll find you again. You know I always do. And then his ship vanished, in a flash of warped space, gone as if it had never been there. Elias kept their course steady, but he could feel her watching him. You didn't have to take that risk, she said quietly. He gave her a sideways glance. I didn't like his voice. Her lips almost formed a smile, but it faded quickly. You don't understand, Elias. Zarek is worse than the hunters, worse than the keepers. Elias leaned back in his seat. I'm starting to get the feeling that every new name I hear is worse than the last. Kara didn't answer, but her hand drifted to the glowing bulge. In her leg, it pulsed faintly, as if aware it had narrowly avoided changing hands. And somewhere in the silence between them, Elias realized it wasn't just the hunters, or the keepers, or Zarek chasing them. It was everyone, and each one had their own reason to want the key, some for power, some for control, and some, maybe just to watch the galaxy burn. The asteroid field loomed ahead like a jagged sea, frozen in mid-motion. Elias guided the ship between massive spinning boulders, the sunlight cutting across them in blinding flashes. Kara sat forward, her eyes narrowing at the readouts. They'll expect us to run for open space, she said. So we go where no sane pilot would follow. He almost laughed. Kara, you've been with me long enough to know I'm not sane. But the truth was, Elias had never flown through this kind of debris at full speed. Every rock out there was moving at a different angle, spinning and drifting on unpredictable paths. One wrong calculation, and the ship would be torn apart before the hunters ever got close. The sensors suddenly pinged, 6 signatures approaching fast. Not just hunters this time, but something heavier. Kara's hand tightened on the armrest. That's the Queen's escort fleet, she said, the words almost a growl. Elias had heard rumors about the Queen's personal guard. They never took prisoners. The ship jolted as Kara rerouted power to the shields. They're armed with gravitic lances, she said. One shot can drag us into an asteroid at terminal speed. Elias kept weaving through the rocks, but his eyes caught the faint shimmer of energy nets spreading between them. A trap. They were herding him toward a section of the field where the rocks were smaller, but moving faster. More speed meant more danger to both sides. Kara moved suddenly, unbuckling her harness. What the hell are you doing? Elias demanded. She opened the case with the alien pulse weapon, again. But this time, she pulled out something different. A spherical device covered in shifting lines of light. I'm buying us 20 seconds, she said, before he could argue. She pressed it to the console. The lines flared, and every asteroid within a kilometer began to hum. The smaller ones started moving erratically, spinning so fast they blurred. The net the fleet had set began to rip apart as the rocks smashed through the anchor points. The coms came alive with bursts of static and alien curses. Elias didn't waste the opening. He slammed the throttle, diving through the chaos. The ship's hull scraping past 2 massive shards of stone that missed, tearing them open by a meter. Kara dropped back into her seat, her breathing uneven. The glow in her leg had brightened, and Elias realized the pulse from the device was connected to the key inside her. You're using it, he said, her jaw clenched. Only enough to save us, but the Queen will feel it. That wasn't comforting. If the Queen could sense the key being activated, then their location wouldn't stay secret for long. The sensors chimed again, but this time, it wasn't enemy ships. It was a single object drifting through the asteroid field. Small, no engines. Elias slowed just enough to get a visual. It was an escape pod, the hull scorched and dented. Inside, through the cracked viewport, a pale hand pressed weakly against the glass. Kara's voice was sharp. Don't stop. Elias looked at her like she'd lost her mind. There's someone in there. There's bait in there, she corrected. But Elias was already adjusting their course. The moment the ship's grappling field latched onto the pod, the sensor screamed. 3 more ships uncloaked in their path, engines burning hot. Kara shot him a glare that could cut steel. You just killed us, human. Elias tightened, his grip on the controls, eyes locked on the enemy ahead. Not yet, he said. And then he pushed the ship toward the danger instead of away from it. The 3 enemy ships closed in fast, their formation tight, forcing Elias into a narrow corridor of rock and drifting debris. The escape pod rattled violently under the grappling field's pull, swinging like a wrecking ball behind them. Kara was already in the weapons seat, her hands flying over the targeting controls. They'll try to disable us, not destroy us, she said. The Queen wants me alive. Elias's mouth twisted into a grin. Then we make her regret that. The first ship fired a pulse that clipped the pod, sending sparks across its battered hull. Inside, the hand behind the viewport curled weakly. Still moving, still alive. Kara cursed under her breath. That pod is a liability. Elias ignored her, slamming the thrusters sideways, scraping past an asteroid so close it peeled the paint off their wing. The second enemy ship broke formation. Moving to flank, Kara didn't wait for orders. She fired. A clean shot that burned a hole straight through its port engine. The crippled craft spun away into the rocks, vanishing in a burst of flame, but the other 2 adapted instantly, herding them toward a massive asteroid with a deep, jagged crater. Elias recognized the tactic, funnel the prey into a dead end, trap them, and close in. Only, he didn't slow down. Instead, he angled the ship straight for the crater's mouth. Kara's eyes widened. There's no way through. Not unless you think in 3 dimensions, he said, at the last second. He rolled the ship and dove beneath the crater's rim. The sensors screamed proximity warnings as jagged stone passed just meters from the hull. Then they shot out the far side, and the enemy ships were gone from the radar. Kara stared at the screen. They didn't follow. Elias's grin faded. They didn't have to. A shadow fell across the viewport, blocking the light from the distant sun. It was the Queen's flagship, enormous, sleek, and bristling. With weapons that could vaporize them in seconds. Kara's face hardened. She's here. The coms flared to life. The Queen's voice rich and cold. Kara, my lost blade. Bring me the key, and I will spare the human. Elias didn't answer. Instead, he released the grappling field, letting the pod drift toward the flagship. Kara snapped her head toward him. What are you? Buying time, he said, and hit the thrusters. The flagship's sensors locked instantly onto the pod, and for a brief, critical moment, they ignored his ship. Kara's hands moved in a blur over the controls. She rerouted all power to the forward cannons, their glow building until it was blinding. When the flagship's targeting shifted back to them, Elias gave a sharp nod. Kara fired. The blast wasn't aimed at the flagship, it was aimed at the largest asteroid in the field. The rock shattered in a chain reaction, sending thousands of fragments spinning outward. The debris storm slammed into the flagship, forcing it to pull back, shields flaring under the impact. Elias didn't waste the opening. He punched the ship into full burn, the stars stretching into long lines as they jumped to warp. The last thing he saw on the sensors was the flagship turning, not to chase them, but to retrieve the pod only. When they were deep in the black, did Kara speak, her voice low? You just gave her exactly what she wanted. Elias shook his head. No. I gave her what she thinks she wanted. Kara's eyes narrowed. What was in that pod? He glanced at her, the faintest smirk on his face. Let's just say, it's going to keep her busy long enough for us to finish this.